if you're keeping bees, you likely kill a queen at some point. In fact, it recently happened to me when I accidentally squished a queen because she was on the outer side of the most outward frame. A place where I've never seen a queen, in our case, in our hives at least before. She's typically somewhere in the middle. But when I tried to get that frame out and I pressed it against the sidewall of the box, I squished her. And it was like, oh, shoot, what I'm gonna do now, Because it was a time when I couldn't just order another queen. There was very low availability. And so I was kind of trying to figure out what to do. So in this video, I'm gonna share with you a few ways that you can address such an issue on requeening a hive, And number one, the first one that is in fact my preferred method, and it's fairly easy if you have multiple hives, is to allow the bees to raise a new queen. Now, usually bees handle that situation themselves. When the queen swarms and takes half of the colony with her, the remaining bees, the ones that are left behind in your hive, are typically smart enough to raise another queen. There might already be one in there, or at least one that's already close to hatching. So bees usually can figure that out. But there are some occasions where if they don't have any very, very young larvae, like just a few days old, or if they don't have any eggs then they cannot raise a new queen. So what I typically do is, if I see that there is a queen missing, or the queen is taken off, or I accidentally killed her, I check the entire colony, the entire hive, and make sure I see if there are eggs in there. Chances are the bees will notice the queen is missing and start feeding the developing larva then royal jelly, which means that larva will turn into a queen rather than a worker bee or maybe a drone. And so I went through that cycle just recently, and it's fairly straightforward. Now, in my case, I didn't have any eggs in that particular hive. It was a small hive. Actually, one I wanted to combine with another one because it came out of winter fairly weak. And so what I did is I went to one of the other hives and found a frame with eggs on it and just moved it over into that colony, and they figured out what to do. They produced a new queen and everything was good. So that's the easiest way of doing it, because then you don't have to worry about buying a queen or getting it from somewhere and putting it in and slowly releasing her to make sure that they get along, etc. They all do it by themselves, and they know exactly how to do that. They've been doing this for a very long time without human intervention. The second option is if you don't have any eggs or any very young larvae. In fact, I always prefer eggs, because with the larvae, I've been beekeeping for a while, but I don't want to risk misjudging the age of the young larva and then not getting a queen. So I typically prefer eggs, but if that's not an option, then you can introduce a new queen. So you can either buy a mated queen from, another beekeeper, or, have a friend who also keeps bees and, it just gives you one. And that's also fairly straightforward. The only thing I would do here is I would keep her in a cage, maybe with a sugar plug or whatever, so that the bee is protected inside that small cage, inside of the hive for several days before they, until the bees chew through the sugar candy. So they get used to each other and they don't, kill the queen, which could happen if you release her immediately. Now, I've released some queens immediately and it went fine, but there is always a risk, and that's why, introducing her slowly is another option, or is the recommended option, really. And then option number 3 is you combine the colony with another one, and that's, in my case, that's what I could have done as well. If you have a relatively small colony, queenless colony, just combine it, with another colony. Maybe that's one that's strong and that has a queen, obviously. And the best way of doing this is, the easiest way of doing this is to separate, if you have one box with the queenless colony and then another box or multiple boxes with a colony that has a queen, with a queen right colony. What I do is typically I place either newspaper or just, simple copy paper on the top box before putting the queenless colony on top. And that also means that they have to take some time to chew through the paper, and that gives them time to get used to each other instead of just, merging them together. That's like, someone coming to your house and throwing in a couple of strangers and, hey, they're going to live with you now. You might get into a fight, And so with the bees, it's kind of the same. You don't want to, foster any aggression or fighting. So that's why, have the paper in between. Let them get accustomed to each other over the course of a few days while they chew through the paper, and then they're completely fine. So that's what I also did recently when I had to combine 2 hives. I just used the paper method and it worked perfectly fine. They chewed through the paper within a few days and they are now good to go. Now, here's the thing. If you say, well, I'll just wait and see what happens, there is a risk of if your hive remains queenless for too long, that your workers are going to start laying eggs. And laying workers are not a good thing, because since those eggs are not fertilized, the only thing that can pop out of those eggs are drones. So you end up with a bunch of drones, and even if you then later reintroduce a queen, you might not be able to stop those workers from laying. And you don't want to have laying workers. And you can identify if there is a laying worker problem if you find multiple eggs in one cell. I've had this once, because I wasn't quick enough with introducing a new queen. In fact, I wasn't sure if there was a queen or not. There was at the very beginning of our beekeeping journey, and I didn't realize that our workers were laying and not the queen. And fortunately, by then reintroducing a queen, the problem disappeared and the queen took over, but that's not always the case. So don't wait too long, but make sure you introduce a queen soon enough, or you introduce at least eggs or very young larvae so that the bees can raise their own queen, so that you don't end up with laying workers or a queenless hive that eventually will die. If there is no new brood, your hive will at some point succumb. The old bees will die and there is no new ones, and that's not a good thing. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, stick around, and I hope I'll see you in the next video.